Finally, the truth is being told.
Why did you say so confidently, if Nicola was in the river, I will find her? I can guarantee you that.
Well, I did find her in the river.
Hello everyone, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have had a great week. I hope you have a great weekend. Today we're going to be talking about the Nicola Bulley case. Some people assumed that I was done with this case, but I never said that I was done with it. I was waiting for some kind of break in the case, and we finally got one. You can only go so far when it comes to cases involving corruption or mishandling by authority figures. There are certain things that no matter how much I dig, we will never know the truth. Not the whole truth, anyway. Many people asked where was my conclusion video, and I was kind of thrown off by that because I felt that I gave as much of a conclusion as I could in the last video I did talking about her case. I pointed fingers where I believed there's corruption and blame. But listen, you guys, I'm not in a situation where I have a legal team or people working for me. And I'm not even in the UK. And before I continue, I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers and someone that I feel I can call a friend now. Both she and her husband were able to help me out after an unfortunate event occurred that kept me from producing videos. And because of them, I'm able to continue creating videos again. You know who you are. Thank you so very much. I will be forever grateful for you, your kindness. This video is for you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you are tuning in. This is Unapologetically me, featuring me. No special guest, just me. Okay, let's get straight into this Peter Faulding interview from the YouTube channel Break the Ice. First of all, I just want to say what an amazing job Luke from Break the Ice did. This was a very professionally done interview with Peter Faulding, and I am so happy that he did this. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I will obviously link it in the description box. I will be showing clips from it throughout this video, but the full video will be in the description box if you haven't already seen it. I know most of you have. Thanks to another one of my subscribers alerting me that this video came out, I am able to speak on it. So thank you for alerting me to that. My first reaction to I found this out on Thanksgiving morning. I'm sorry, you guys, I have to turn my heater on. You might hear it in the background. It's really loud, but I'm out in my garage and it's freaking freezing. Okay, yeah, so I find this out on Thanksgiving that this video went out. I'm trying to cook. I'm waiting for my family to show up. I got kids running around and I'm over here like, I gotta listen to this. I cannot not watch this. My first reaction to just the first 30 seconds of that video, besides my jaw dropping to the floor, I thought I was gonna throw up. Like, I legit had my stomach, I felt like crying. I felt like jumping around, but I felt like vomiting. I have felt from the very first media interview that Peter Faulding did that he was holding something back. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his eyes. I have always been Team Peter. There has never been a point during my entire investigation that I thought Peter Faulding was anything but a professional, excellent in his field, but that, like many people, he had been silenced. So this changes everything. If you're new here and this is your first time checking out my channel, I have done so many videos on the Nicola Bulley case at this point, and nothing much has changed in my views or opinions. Mostly I've been asking questions and pointing out inconsistencies, but this actually proves, in a sense, that my suspicions about Lancashire Police Department and, more importantly, DSI Rebecca Smith were spot on from the start. Another thing that was brought up was the man in black. And I have a whole video where I discussed how I felt the man in black was a red herring. But now, with this information, it appears that this mystery man in black has been inserting himself into the Nicola Bulley case since day one. Now, you'll have to forgive me, I've been wrapped up in another case that was brought to my attention, and I've been doing some serious digging into the corruption involved there. So I'm a little bit rusty on my memory of every small detail of Nicola Bulley's case, but one thing I was excited about was that Peter Faulding brought up many of the things that I had questioned in prior videos and have already made videos on. And there is an entire playlist for anyone who is new here and has been following the Nicola Bulley case and wants a different perspective of it. So how does this interview with Peter Faulding change things? Because it does change things, right? It puts certain conspiracy theories to rest, but it also confirms other theories. Namely, the theory that, in my opinion, Lancashire police are either very incompetent or that they're trying to hide the truth. One thing that has been confirmed by Peter Faulding is that he was not welcomed by the Lancashire police, as he usually is by other police forces that he has worked with in the past.
Were they welcoming and forthcoming in your assistance?
I wouldn't say welcoming. I think they probably didn't want us there in the first place.
Another thing that Peter Faulding confirmed usually happens in these cases is that normally he and his team would be working with the lead investigator on the search very closely, which in Nikki's case would have been DSI Rebecca Smith. But Peter Faulding never even met with, let alone spoke to SI Becky Smith during this entire search process. And any correspondence that he attempted to have with her went ignored. We know now that Peter Faulding was not asked his expert opinion about where he would like to search, but instead he was directed to where he would be allowed to search that first day he showed up to help out, which was the area downriver.
Yeah, normally I'd be working with the police search advisor very closely and also the senior investigating officer, which I didn't obviously meet the senior investigating officer on this job. So you would normally get all the information, cell site analysis from, mobile phone data, you would get vulnerabilities, you'd get all other issues that come into it, and then a search plan will be put together, and I may throw my piece in as well to say, actually, I think we need to look at this area. So that's what we normally get, but with this one we want you to search downriver today.
Peter Faulding explains the area and the river in detail, noting that the tidal area begins after the weir.
There's two parts of this river. There's the tidal section of the river, which is over the weir and down towards the sea. I mean, the sea's miles away.
Yeah.
So that's where Nicola was eventually found, in that small section of tidal river, over the weir.
Over the weir.
Over the weir.
Okay.
Then you've got the area that goes from the bench and then it comes down around a long bend down to the weir. That is a non-tidal section.
The area from the bench up until the weir is very slow moving, almost stagnant at the bench at the time Nikki went into the water.
So as the tide comes in and out, it will flood the river, just like on the beach, but it will push the water up on the river, but it won't affect the area where the bench was. So that's a non-tidal section and very, very slow moving. That is the part where Nicola's phone was found on the bench. So this is what I call the hot zone. So that's where the items, typical where we deal with dementia patients and things like that, where they fall in the river, there's a slipper or something left. So that is the area everyone focused there. And that's what I would have searched that on day one if I'd had the choice, but I didn't have the choice.
In his expert opinion, the hot zone at the time he was called in would have still been the area at the bench leading up to the weir. That is the area that needed to be searched first, yet that's not the area that he and his team were allowed to search on day one. We know the day Nicola went missing was January 28th of 2023, and I can always remember that date because it's my birthday. Peter Faulding came out to search on February 6th, 2023.
The first day was Monday the 6th, so we were searching from, as instructed by the police, from the weir, and we were given down to Cartford Bridge, which is 2 or 3 miles down. It's quite a long way down.
So it had been 9 days that Nikki had been missing at that point, and 9 days that she would have been in the river. And I'm gonna throw them a bone here. It is possible that the police believe that after 9 days of being in the water, that she had been swept further down at that point. But doesn't the opinion of police kind of not matter when an expert has now been called in? An expert with 20 years of experience in finding bodies in the water. An expert with a 100% location and recovery rate. Nevertheless, Peter and his team were unable to search that area day one, and Peter and his team were unable to search the area that Peter still felt, even after 9 days, was considered to still be a hot zone.
That is the part where Nicola's phone was found on the bench. So this is what I call the hot zone. That is the area everyone focused there. And that's what I would have searched that on day one if I'd had the choice, but I didn't have the choice. You would always search the area of interest first. That would be the key. That's the first thing you would do, yes.
In my opinion, Peter's already there. So why not allow him to just begin his search at the bench and follow the flow of the river until every single inch of it had been searched? So to me, that's just like common sense, right? Yet it didn't happen. And I'd just like to ask why.
You know, there's many documentaries been made about us and working alongside the police.
We ask a lot of questions on this channel. We do tend to speculate where we don't have answers to very simple questions such as this, but we're simply asking questions. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a question.
All our statistics, and it's known worldwide, everybody, so on average we deal with about 10 drowning victims every summer and a number of suicides each year. We always find them in, if they go in a lake, they're always where they go down. If they're in a river, they'll be nearby as well. The only time that will change is if it's a raging torrent.
Why was Peter's expertise ignored by Lancashire police? Let's move on. So Peter Faulding first began his search on February 6th of 2023. He was told the area he would be searching would be downriver, particularly the area from the Weir down to Cartford Bridge. That area of the river was crystal clear water all the way to the bottom and very shallow.
So we were searching from, as instructed by the police, from the Weir, and we were given down to Cartford Bridge, which is 2 or 3 miles down. It's quite a long way down. But that area was interesting. There was nothing seen on the bottom. It was crystal clear. The tide goes out. It's extremely shallow.
Peter and his team searched downriver, and that area, in his opinion, was negative for a target. If there was anything in that part of the river on February 6th of 2023, he would have found it. And it almost sounds like it would be easy to find. Being shallow with crystal clear waters all the way to the bottom, that finding wouldn't really even have been an issue. You would have seen a body, especially if you were looking for one. This is the area that Nikki was eventually found in weeks later.
Where she was eventually found, she was found in the reed bed just up on the side.
Yeah.
And again, I'll make it clear, that wasn't our remit to search the reeds. I'm focusing purely on a sonar in a screen, and we're focusing on the riverbed.
Yeah.
That's the land search teams who do that.
Peter also mentioned that when he and his team were searching that area, they were the only ones searching that area. He had not seen anybody else searching on land. There were a couple officers here and there, but it was very quiet.
When we were there was no search activity going on whatsoever. Never saw anyone beat sticks or anything. I think it had already been done. And I think they were probably waiting for Nicola to pop up somewhere.
He also reiterates that he was not asked to search on land. So how it normally works for Peter and his team is that the police are the ones in control of the investigation. Peter and his team are there many times after areas have already been thoroughly searched and nothing's been found, right? So it is always at the police discretion how and where he searched. Typically, when Peter locates a target, he is to relay that information to the police, and it is then at the discretion of the police whether or not he dive that area for confirmation and recovery of the target.
When I contacted the police search advisor, I said, we need to put divers in now, we'll put our divers in. But he refused that request, and he said, you're not to dive, we will dive.
He's not just allowed to just dive in and pull up a body or pull up evidence. He needs to relay that to police, and police need to okay that. There is a protocol, and it is there for a reason. But we also need to keep in mind that the protocol, for some reason, in Lancashire was different than Peter had experienced working with other police departments in other areas.
Absolutely, that's the protocol you'd always follow. Once we locate a body in the river, we will tell the police. The police will then relay that to those who need it. The area will be cleared and that will be acted upon, and then the police will normally, bearing in mind we are the team who normally dive and recover, when they give us the instructions to dive, and then we will recover the evidence or body as required.
So that normally be given permission to then go in yourselves?
That's correct.
But in this case, the Nicola Bulley case, you weren't able to go in, they would go in.
And we've talked about this in many other videos. What Peter Faulding has said about the way a body would behave after drowning, how it would sink to the bottom and it would stay there for a pretty decent amount of time until the decomposition process starts to produce gases, which in turn make the body start to float and move from that position because it becomes lighter and it starts to move with the current. Eventually, the body will fill with so much of these gases that it will pop up out of the water and you will be able to see it floating.
What, like as in pop up?
Yeah.
Float up, like?
Potentially, yeah.
Like do you want to explain a little bit about how it works when a body goes into a river? And
bodies never float. They always go to the bottom if they drowned.
But this is a process. Decomposition varies, especially when we think of being in water versus land, temperature, and factors such as that.
So what happens, a body, when it's been in the river for a number of days, and what you've got bearing in mind, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Different makeup, larger people, smaller people, thinner people. There's no exact science on this. Now, bearing in mind, Nicola was wearing a long coat, which can act like an anchor as well. So if she'd been without that coat, she probably would have popped up earlier. So now it's winter, it's colder. In the winter, they take longer to come up. And then eventually the body starts to bloat and deteriorate from the inside out, microbiological action.
Yeah.
And then you will slowly come up.
But again, if we're speaking on just Nicola Bulley's case, it is more likely that within the 9-day period that police were searching the area before the weir, that's exactly where she would have been found. Peter said that when he was searching the area from the weir to Cartford Bridge, he knew that there were police divers farther down by the estuary, but the area before the weir had already been searched and essentially was not needed to be searched further by Peter and his team.
There was quite a long time where she was being searched for.
Absolutely,
before you arrived.
Yeah. I know the police divers were working further out towards the estuary. They were quite busy, but when we were there was no search activity going on whatsoever. Never saw anyone with beach sticks or anything. I think it had already been done.
At least that was the indication. So Peter and his team searched the area from the weir to Cartford Bridge on that first day that they were there, and they did not find anything. On Tuesday, the 7th of February, 2023, Peter and his team commenced their search at 10:28 a.m. This time, they were searching the area that Peter wanted to search on day 1, which was the location from the bench to the weir, aka the hot zone. 6 minutes later, at 10:34 a.m., a target was located. The target appeared on sonar as a shadow of 2 arms and 2 legs, and according to Peter Faulding, he knew immediately, based on his experience and the person they were searching for, that it was Nicola Bulley.
The first target that you got on the sonar, what kind of image was that?
It was a clear symmetrical shadows of either 2 arms or 2 legs.
Shadows?
It was shadows. To me, it took human form straight away. I knew that, because we're looking for a body, and I know straight away when I see a target like that with all my experience, this was Nicola.
Luke pointed out the observation that had Peter Faulding and his team been allowed to search this hot zone, the area they wanted to search on day 1, that Nicola's body would have been found within 6 minutes of them commencing their search.
This was the area that you wanted to search on day 1?
That's correct.
So you would have made that discovery after 6 minutes of arriving on the scene.
Yes,
overall?
That's correct.
It's very interesting.
It's quite astonishing how good this team is, considering that area had been searched for 9 days prior to them being even called to the scene. But even more astonishing was the police response to Peter's discovery of what he believed 100% to be the target, Nicola Bulley.
I was totally sure that that took human form straight away, and it needed to be dived straight away.
Right.
Because it was the shadows of 2 arms, 2 legs, whatever, that needed an immediate dive.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to do. When I contacted the police search advisor, I said, we need to put divers in now. We'll put our divers in. But he refused that request. And he said, you're not to dive, we will dive.
As we talked earlier, there's a protocol. After Peter locates a target, he immediately relays that information to police. Normally, he would then be allowed to dive down to recover either the evidence or the body itself, but he was not given permission to do that. In fact, they were then told to leave, and the police would commence the search of that area themselves. Essentially, the police wanted to confirm for themselves, and Peter was no longer needed and therefore was discarded, rather disgustingly, by police. We already know the smear campaign that happened for Peter Faulding and his team after he allegedly failed to find Nicola Bulley. It's very important to note that when a body is discovered by side scan sonar, there is no mistaking that it's a body. Peter wrote a book, and in that book he showed what it looks like on a side scan sonar when a body is discovered, and there is no mistaking it.
You've stated on a few occasions that if a body is discovered in water using a side scan sonar, there's no mistaking that it is indeed that of a body. And that is backed up in your book, where there's a very clear image of a body in a river.
I put everything I have on the fact that if Peter Faulding says that was Nikki, that was Nikki.
The first and only target was, the target we identified was Tuesday the 7th of February 2023. I commenced my search at 10:28 that morning, and 6 minutes later at 10:34, I located the target.
Did you believe the discovery of the target to be Nicola, going off the size of it?
I did.
Straight away?
Straight away, yeah.
So the big question of the day is, then why was she not recovered Tuesday the 7th of February 2023? Well, to put it simply, Peter was told, thank you for your services. Actually, no, I take that back. He was never told thank you at all. He was simply shooed away, and Lancashire police took over and confirmed that the target that Peter had seen with his very own eyes to be the body of Nicola Bulley was negative. It was not Nicola Bulley. It was not even a body. There was nothing there at all.
And how long before they come back and updated you on what it was that you'd located?
I got a message passed through my dive supervisor to me, and they just come back and said, target's negative, it's nothing.
Target's negative?
Yeah.
Peter explained how he was aghast when he heard that the target was negative. And I can only imagine what went on in his head. I mean, talk about being gaslit. Peter and his team saw for themselves that there was a body there, and now they're being told by police that there is no body there. Peter obviously questioned how he got that wrong, because he had never gotten it wrong before.
I was baffled because I'm never wrong on these targets. I wanted obviously to go back. So we did go back to that area once the police had gone that afternoon.
Once they'd gone?
Yes.
And did you go down with your sonar again?
Yeah, re-sonared.
Did you get another image?
Yeah, I got a number of images, yeah.
But he made one mistake. A very common mistake for people to make, and that mistake was that he trusted the police. In his mind, the police wouldn't lie about something like that, so if there was no body there, then he must have been mistaken.
The police said to me it was nothing, and I felt pretty deflated, to be honest, and I'm thinking it can't be nothing, but maybe they're right, and they must be right, because you brought up to trust the police, and I trusted the divers, because I've worked with police divers, they're good divers, and I've got no doubt about that. So I trusted
But Peter had the photos from the sonar. He went back over them. He knew what he was looking at, and so he emailed DSI Rebecca Smith and sent her the photos and all of the data with what he believed to be confirmation that Nicola's body was there on Tuesday, February 7th.
It was just shocking. When you look back, when we left the scene, we had no further contact with Lancashire Police whatsoever. So they didn't even request our search file. They didn't even ask for our sonar data. How strange is that? Nothing.
He never got a response. When the inquiry was scheduled to take place, we know Peter wasn't there. He was not asked to be there. He did offer his findings and the data, which were again ignored. Peter believes that because he was deemed incompetent, his reputation tarnished, that was the excuse that would be given as to why he would not be speaking at the inquest.
John, my dive supervisor, ex-police officer, diver, was my scribe on the day, so he made sketches and he over the exact things what happened. We have our own search report. We sent that to Lancashire Police, to Becky Smith and to a sergeant I'm not going to name, but she was in the public eye and he wasn't, but it was sent to both of them, the sketches PDF'd, and it was sent the week after we arrived. And it says target negative, by dive by Northwest Underwater Service. So it was clearly that would have been presented. Not even a reply from Becky Smith, which may be, or the sergeant. Not even a reply to say thank you for sending it. Nothing. I mean, that's just shocking.
The College of Policing is doing its own investigation of police conduct in the case of Nicola Bulley. And they did speak with Peter Faulding, and they listened to what Peter had to say. And they gathered the data from the day that Peter Faulding discovered Nicola's body at the bottom of the river, just 75 meters away from the bench, 11 days after she had gone missing. We don't know how she got into that water. I am confident that she did not go in of her own accord, as is Peter Faulding and anyone who uses critical thinking skills. Just as I said in a prior video months ago, she was a mother. What mother leaves their children on purpose with the finality of death and doesn't even leave a note?
I don't believe she jumped in and tried to drown herself, because most people leave suicide notes. Most females we deal with who commit suicide have had alcohol in their bloodstream, and they've had tablets. That's always the case. We always find at least a bottle of alcohol.
That was the one thing that struck me when I thought, could she have taken her own life? I mean, anything's possible, but I would never leave my children without them knowing how much I loved them in a note, so that they never blamed themselves, so that they knew for a fact that this had nothing to do with them. I mean, that's just me, but it's why I never believed for an instant that Nikki took her own life, and definitely not in that manner, with her dog running loose, with her business finally taking off. Paul didn't talk about Nikki's vulnerabilities because they weren't who she was. She had struggled in the past, but that's not who she was. She never would have taken her own life. She never would have left her children. And he didn't want her to have that label. That, of course, is just my opinion. It's my opinion, and it always has been, that foul play occurred. I strongly believe that if it were an accident, she would have been found that very first day, right where she went into the water. And at the very least, when Peter Faulding had eyes on her, she would have been recovered that day. It is my opinion still, after all of this time, that the Lancashire police are hiding something. Now, Peter Faulding mentioned something else big during this interview. He mentioned a man in black. We spoke about this man in black, and I called him an enigma. I didn't believe he existed. I thought he may have been a red herring, because it didn't appear that everybody saw this man in black. Only the people that were invited to the inquest. But now it comes out that that's not true. Other people had seen this man in black, but the man in black was never taken seriously.
The other thing is there's a guy in black walking around.
The man in black, I've heard about this man in black.
Yeah, and I was up there one day and this guy was asking questions of my team on day one. What can you find with a sonar, etc., etc. And my team said, that guy's acting really weird. And I've got the pictures, it was the man in black. Once I located that target, we were going upriver and that guy appeared again. And he's there on his phone, he's looking and he's standing there. So Dave got his camera with the long lens and done some perfect shots of him. I then passed that on to Lancashire Police thinking, actually, this could be
Could be a key piece of evidence.
Absolutely key. But I sent that image to the sergeant. I never even got a reply.
Peter Faulding found it very interesting that this man in black kept showing up and asking questions. And Peter even had one of his media friends from The Sun take a photo of the man in black, to which Peter then sent the photo to DSI Rebecca Smith, and again, his email was ignored. So now the question remains, who is this man in black? My opinion has obviously changed with Peter's interview because I trust Peter Faulding, and I always have. So there was a man in black who inserted himself into the investigation, very typical of someone suspect. And we know that there were other people besides this man in black that had been seen and reported on and had never been questioned or located even. At the end of the day, we do have some answers here, though we don't have the answer we really want, which is how did Nikki get into the river to begin with? What really happened to her and who is responsible? Was it just an unfortunate accident? And if so, why did it take so long to find her? My conclusion of this case, or of my investigation of this case, is that Nicola Bulley was murdered. I believe that the town is linked to something. I believe that Lancashire police know much more than they're letting on. I believe people are connected to things that are pretty big. I believe people are covering for people. My conclusion is that I don't think we're ever going to know what happened to Nikki or why. We're only going to be able to speculate. But I am very happy that Peter Faulding was finally able to tell his side of the story, and I am even more happy that someone's finally listening to him. Because if this is an incompetence thing, then things need to change. And if this is a corruption thing, then people need to wake up to it. Regardless, this cannot happen again to anyone. So that was my initial response. Okay, that's the part of the video that I was going to put out by itself. But now that I've been processing all of this information and had some more time to think about it and watch it a few times, I realized that really this interview changes nothing. And maybe that is shocking to some of you, but for others of you who are not so easily manipulated, as I admit I am guilty of at first, if I don't really sit and process, I do tend to be very trusting and give people the benefit of the doubt. But as I was saying, for others who are not so easily manipulated, you have just realized, just as I have now, that this interview, unfortunately, changes nothing. It is indeed a shocking revelation, but it's entirely too little, too late. Sorry, not sorry. It's the truth. At the end of the day, all we know is that back on February 7th, 2023, Peter Faulding and his team located a target just on the other side of an island. We're just going to call it the island, 75 meters from the bench. But that target had not been confirmed by police, and neither Peter nor his team were able to actually dive the area to confirm. So it all boils down to whether or not you believe Peter Faulding, with all of his expertise, stats, and prior reputation.
And I know straight away when I see a target like that, with all my experience, this was Nicola.
Or whether or not you believe the police, who, in my opinion, have been disingenuous throughout this entire investigation.
But I would like to reassure the community that nothing in this investigation so far, it has been checked out. If it's come into it suggesting crime, it has been checked out and discounted. So every single potential third-party line of inquiry, any potential suspicious or criminal element has been looked at and discounted. Absolutely, wholeheartedly not identified any other line of inquiry that we have not already started looking at or completed, should give reassurance to the wider public.
Other than that, unfortunately, we have zero proof that we can see, we being the public. Now, if Peter Faulding has these photos and videos, I would love to see them. I think we all would. So let's look closely at the two options of opinions we have to choose from. The third option being no opinion at all. The thought of, I don't know what to believe anymore when it comes to this case because it's all so crazy. Option one, or scenario one, whatever you want to think of it as, opinion one. Peter's target was in fact Nicola Bulley. That's our first option. Okay, so we're going to pretend that we know for certain the target that Peter Faulding identified on February 7th, 2023 was Nicola Bulley. Remember, this is entirely hypothetical. That doesn't change the fact that in the 11 days prior to February 7th, 2023, Nicola was not found to be in the river. Because it had been 11 days, her body could have remained in the same place it went down, but it also could have moved a bit here and there as the decomposition process began to take over and her body began to fill with gases, causing her to become more buoyant. If it had moved, it wouldn't have moved far. Being that it was winter, it was cold, she was underwater, so the decomp process would have been slower. As Peter Faulding said, there is no exact science to decomposition because many factors are involved. And just like Peter, I'm no expert on microbiological decomposition. So it is certainly not crazy to think, though, that it's possible that her body may have moved over the 11 days. But if it were moving, and that area was being searched daily, it's pretty odd that no one saw her body moving along the bottom of the river. And we need to remember, it's non-tidal there, right? My personal opinion is that if she fell in at the bench area and the police searched properly and with proper equipment, Nicola would have been brought up that very first day that she fell in. So either the police divers did an unremarkable search, to say the least, or Nicola Bulley wasn't in the river in that area by the bench, aka the hot zone, where her belongings were found. I noticed something interesting in the Peter Faulding interview video towards the very end. Peter begins to say that Nicola Bulley may not have gone in the river at the bench area, and then Luke cuts him off.
I don't believe that she committed suicide. You don't in your professional mind, and I don't think many people do.
No, where Nicola went in, there's no guarantee that Nicola fell in at that particular, or went in at that particular point.
What's next for Peter Faulding?
Or we just carry on doing what we do.
And then there's also an edit there. So I don't know if it was edited out for a reason or not. Maybe legal reasons, I don't know. Or maybe Peter didn't want it in there. Or maybe he never even finished that thought. But I would have loved if Peter was able to have finished that thought, because he started to talk about how she may not have gone in the river at the bench area.
No, where Nicola went in, there's no guarantee that Nicola fell in at that particular, or went in at that particular point.
What's next for Peter Faulding?
Did he finish that thought? Was it Peter Faulding's expert opinion that if that target was Nicola Bulley, then she more than likely went in at the island and not at the bench area, because that's on the completely other side of the river. Had she fallen in at the bench and swam there to try to get out? That makes no sense to me. That island was said to be the deepest part of the river in that area. It was 3 meters deep, PC Thackeray said.
It's about 3 meters deep just past, it's about 2 meters deep just past this island.
There was really no current at the bench area that would have helped her get to that point. And there were trees even before that area. Would have been a place she could have probably gotten herself out. But back to scenario one. Remember, hypothetical, and I'm not going off on a tangent here. I mean, I could sit here and spill my thoughts out for days. But so Peter Faulding tells the police that he located a target that, in his expert opinion, took human form, and it needed to be, quote, dived straight away, unquote.
I was totally sure that that took human form straight away, and it needed to be dived straight away.
Right.
Because it was the shadows of 2 arms, 2 legs, whatever, that needed to an immediate dive.
Yeah.
Normally, Peter Faulding would have been given the okay to dive.
Police will normally, bearing in mind we are the team who normally dive and recover, when they give us the instructions to dive,
he would have marked the area and dove down to confirm the target.
And then we will recover the evidence or body as required.
But in this case, he was told specifically not to dive.
When I contacted the police search advisor, I said, we need to put divers in now. We'll put our divers in. But he refused that request. And he said, you're not to dive. We will dive.
That the police would do the dive. So Peter mentioned that in order to not gain a bunch of media attention on that area, he continued his search further on down the river.
There was no cordons. They were just everywhere.
And when the police were done searching the area where he located his target, he made his way back and then searched with his sonar again, taking multiple photos and videos of the target.
So we did go back to that area once the police had gone that afternoon.
Once he'd gone?
Yes.
And did you did you go down with your sonar again?
Yeah, re-sonar.
Did you get another image?
Yeah, I got a number of images. Yeah, a number of images. Again.
Clearer, different, more. Did it reconfirm what you thought you knew?
They were clear.
The police said that the target was negative, but that doesn't really answer the question of what was causing the shadows that Peter was seeing. The shadows that, in Peter's expert opinion, were of 2 arms and 2 legs. The target that took human form.
I just felt a bit deflated, the team did, and thought, okay, well, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there, but what's creating the shadows? You see, that the bit I wanted to do was get in the water and have a look for ourselves. That was the key bit.
And you weren't able to?
No.
Did the police say what it was that was causing those shadows? Because if they had, they certainly didn't relay that to Peter. Because to this day, all he knows is that the target, according to police, was negative for being Nicola Bulley. And if he knows more than that, then that is certainly a question I hope somebody asks him during Luke's Q&A. Did the police ever say what that shadow was? Because I'm assuming they never did, because he still is asking, then what were those shadows? So, and hopefully it was negative for being a human body at all, because if that's the case, then there's another body in the river that needs to be recovered. And PC Thackeray floated right past it during his reconstruction video. So if we're going with scenario number 1, or option number 1, that Peter's target was Nicola Bulley, then what the hell happened? Because it's no more police randomly searching, right? Police specifically went back to a location where a target was located, and they still found nothing. Now that's near impossible, if she were there. So, it's my opinion that if Peter Faulding's target was in fact Nicola Bulley, and then the police did not bring her body up and recover her that day, then either they left her body in the water, or they did a really crappy search, or on the more conspiracy theory side of things, they did recover her body, but then for some reason kept it quiet. However, I have to say, I do not believe that theory because, as Peter Faulding stressed during his interview on Break the Ice, there was heavy media presence everywhere. The police did absolutely nothing to secure the areas from the media. Peter even said that he had drones flying in his face while he was doing his search. Could that be the reason they just left her in the river?
That looks like a target to me, a really good target.
A head scratcher.
Yeah, it was a head scratcher, yeah.
You wouldn't expect them to then go and search that location and miss.
No, I
if,
wouldn't.
If there was something there.
I mean, police divers are highly trained, and I'm not going to knock them because I've worked with them for many years. They're professional, but obviously something's gone wrong on this particular case.
Again, that makes absolutely no sense unless they wanted decomposition to further to hide injuries. But again, we're not going to go off on tangents. This leads me to option number 2. Peter Faulding's target was in fact negative. So hypothetically, let's pretend that Peter Faulding's target was really negative, that the police went back to search and there was nothing there. Or it was something, but it wasn't Nicola, and it wasn't a body of a human being. Peter asked that he be able to search the area himself again, and he was told no. Peter sent images of the target, and then later on sent even more images of the target to DSI Rebecca Smith, all of which went completely ignored. If there was nothing there, and the target was negative, why wouldn't the police say, okay, go ahead, Peter, knock yourself out. There's nothing there, but go ahead, waste your time. So as Luke says during the interview, it's a real head scratcher, right? It makes no sense. Now, as I said before, I look at Peter Faulding to be a very upstanding and professional man. I have no reason to believe that he would lie to the public. Also, given his credentials and accuracy in locating and recovering bodies, I believe him 100% when he says he believes that the target he found was to be that of Nicola Bulley. What you believe is entirely your opinion, because when it comes to cases like this, there really is no right or wrong answer, until of course there's proof. So, we, being the public, still have no hard evidence to prove, well, anything really. The only thing this shocking revelation proves is that, and this is entirely my opinion, the Lancashire police are shady AF and the police are hiding something. Because if that target was negative, then why not say to the public, we had Peter Faulding out here, he located a target he believed to be Nicola Bulley, but when we dived, we found that it was just tree roots or an animal or whatever. Why drag Peter's name all around the internet? Why keep him from the inquest? Why all the secrecy? And excuse my language, but bullshit. Now, the College of Policing did their own investigation, and they did listen to Peter, but nothing came of it. And just like the prior inquest before, the day of the alleged real recovery of Nicola's body was completely omitted. Jason Rothwell's discovery, or did we forget about him? And that whole performance that took place over the span of 2 days, the staging that went on in order for that performance to go off without a hitch is quite remarkable. Where Inzamam Rashid had his camera set up within the police perimeter nearly an hour before the dive team was even there, along with Curtis Media, who seemed privy to more information than even Peter Faulding was during this entire investigation. He just kept popping up at the right place at the right time. There is, of course, the one conspiracy theory that, in my opinion, really can't be put to bed by Peter's speaking out. And that's the one where Nicola Bulley's body was in the river on day one and had been in the river ever since, and that her body was not placed in the river at a later date. And this is why. If Peter found her body on February 7th of 2023, that still leaves 10 to 11 days that she wasn't found, even though the area was said to be extensively searched by 4 different forces of dive teams. Are they all being silenced? Does not one other diver or search and rescue team have the integrity to come forward and say, hey, we really didn't search that area very well? Or, hey, we located a target as well, but we were told it was negative. There is the other possibility, of course, that Nicola never went into the river at the bench, that she went in where Peter found her, which would mean that the bench area was a decoy, or she was led away from the bench area before being able to grab her items. Maybe Willow ran off in that direction because someone was calling her, and Nikki didn't have time to grab her phone off the bench and just took off after Willow. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that we could play off in our head. But one thing I think we need to remember, and we cannot forget, is the FITBIT data. That FITBIT never went into the water, in my opinion, based on the data that was recovered from it, along with the experimentation that was done by Nicola. And if you haven't checked those videos out of mine, like I said, I have a ton of videos. There is a specific FITBIT video you can check out. See what you make of it. I thought there was going to be a light at the end of this very dark tunnel, but it doesn't look like there will be one after all. And I'm not surprised. Just look at the Madeleine McCann case. We will more than likely never know what happened to Nicola Bulley and why. But it is important to call out corruption. It is important to let victims know. You will not be forgotten. Someone is going to fight for you. It is important that perpetrators know that you're not going to get away with it that easy. People care. Now, you're going to hear that there's a possibility that not only was Peter Faulding made a scapegoat 9 months ago, but that there's a possibility he's being made a scapegoat right now. I have a lot more digging to do. and refreshing to do, along with another case that I was in the middle of and I don't want to abandon because there is a lot of secrets that I am finding there too, and I just cannot sit on it all now that I found it. I would like to put out a video before Luke does his Q&A with Peter Faulding on the 7th of December. I hopped on his live this morning just to kind of introduce myself because I hadn't watched any of his videos in the past. I know he was becoming more known by my subscribers right about the time I was pulling my hair out and needed to take a break. I obviously have so many questions, but most of my questions are not for Peter Faulding. Most of my questions are for the Lancashire police, but that would be like, as you guys say, flogging a dead horse, even thinking that any of those questions will ever be answered. Because while the questions that I have for the Lancashire police are very simple questions that have very simple answers, it's considered a conspiracy theory just to ask these questions. To be completely honest, I don't even need them to answer them. Their ignorance of these very simple and basic questions that so many people have is the answer in and of itself. Of course, that's my opinion. If I wait for life to get easier before I continue doing what I'm passionate about, I'll be waiting forever. But mentally, I did need a break, so I took it. Now I'm back. Please, again, don't forget there is another case that I'm working on, but I am going to do some more investigating on the Nicola Bulley case. I'm going to go back, see what's been going on the last couple months, see if I can notice anything that maybe has been missed or any opinions that I can maybe add to. So I will see you guys on the next one. Please be safe, be healthy, be happy, and most of all, be unapologetically you. Bye-bye.